Stop right there. If you have a leftover turkey or chicken carcass, do not throw it away. If you've never made homemade broth, you're in for a treat. This easy chicken broth is extremely simple to make and results in a rich, tasty stock that's seriously delicious. Chances are you're here because you have a leftover bird carcass and you want to make the most of it. Turkey stock is made from leftover turkey carcass, bones, scraps, all of it, and it's so rich and flavorful. The same applies to chicken. I'm going to show you today how to do the stovetop method of chicken stock. You might be thinking, if it's just broth, what's so great about it? Well, there are tons of benefits to bone broth. Many people drink bone broth because it's nutrient packed. When those bones are cooked low and slow, they release their naturally occurring collagen and gelatin, which is thought to be good for your gut health, your skin, and your nails.
You're going to need 4 pounds of chicken carcasses or a large turkey. I'm using 2 rotisserie chickens that I got from Costco. I've deboned it, and this is what remains. Place the chicken bones into a 12-quart stock pot. Stock can just be bones and water, but I'm going to add some vegetables. I've got a large onion that I've quartered. I'm going to put in 4 ribs of celery, which I'm going to cut in half. Next, I'm going to add some carrots. Now you can peel them if you'd like to. I'm actually not. I washed them really well and I'm just going to cut them up. You can use 3 carrots, 4 carrots, 2 carrots. The choice is yours. At this recipe, I use 3. It's really how much carrots flavor you want into your broth. And in the end, I'm not even sure you really taste the carrots, but it's totally up to you. Cut them into smaller pieces though, so that the boiling water can saturate into those carrots and get the nutrients out of it. I personally wanted a little more onion, so I took some green onions and added a few sprigs of that into the pot. I'm also going to add into the pot as well some spices. We love garlic, so I'm adding 2 teaspoons of crushed garlic. Next, add 2 bay leaves. So here's where you can get a little more creative based on your flavor preferences. You can add whatever spice it is that you would like to add to your chicken stock. I add thyme, I also add parsley, and I add pepper to my chicken stock when I make it. You could leave it blank if you wanted to so that it's more generic and you can use it in other things. I know I'm using it in my chicken noodle soup. I'm going to share that link at the end of the video. So these are the ingredients and the spices I put in, which I also love to use in my chicken noodle soup. Now you're going to add your water. Now there's no specific amount of water to add. The only requirement is that it covers the entire contents in your pot. So make sure that you fill it up so that everything is completely submerged under the water line.
Now we've got all those ingredients in our pot. We're going to put the lid on it and continue to watch it as it boils.
Cook on high heat until you begin to see bubbles break through the surface of the liquid. Turn the heat down to medium-low so that the stock maintains a low, gentle simmer. Next, you're going to want to skim the scum from the stock with a spoon or a fine mesh strainer every 10 to 15 minutes for the first hour of cooking, and twice each hour for the next 2 hours. So you are going to need to stay close by to your pot while this is simmering on the stovetop. Now watch how the soup evolves as we simmer it uncovered for the next 6 to 8 hours.
The house smells so good when you are doing this low and slow chicken stock recipe. Just put it on the burner and let it bubble and simmer for a couple of hours and your house is going to smell delicious. You're not even cooking dinner yet and it's going to smell divine.
The next step is to strain the stock. I'm doing this in my kitchen sink so that it doesn't make a huge amount of mess. Look at how those bones have just fallen apart. There's no chicken carcass like you saw at the beginning. Everything is soft and well soaked, cooked through. Now I'm going to lift up this large mesh strainer and you're going to see what remains of the broth. So let's take a closer look at what the broth looks like. And you can see at first glance that it definitely needs to be strained again. So we're going to pull out my little tiny mesh strainer and we're going to strain the broth again because we need to get out that thyme and the garlic and the pepper to get all those things so that what we have remaining is just the chicken stock. That's what we're trying to get. And this is a little time consuming. Yes, it takes two hands, two sets of hands in order to make this happen. But no one wants that sludge. No one wants a cloudy looking chicken stock. We want this clear. And the only way to make this happen is by doing it strained through a fine mesh strainer. You could even use a cloth to strain it through that way as well if you don't have a mesh strainer to use. Now, as we get to the bottom of this, you're going to be able to see the amount of pepper that we put in, which was 1 teaspoon. Now it looks a lot, but if you could, I'd use whole peppercorns so that you don't have to deal with this part of the process.
Now that it's done and we've drained it in the sink, we're going to take it and put it in our fridge. Now it needs to sit in the fridge in order for it to solidify so that we can skim the top of the fat that comes off of this bones. And yes, it doesn't sound very pretty, but it needs to solidify or gellify, whatever the word you want to use is, so that we can take that top layer off. We don't want that in our bone broth when we go to make our noodle soup or use it in other recipes. We need to take that top off.
We got a total of 8 cups of bone broth, and now we're going to place it in the refrigerator overnight.
So this is a process that many times gets skipped, but it's important to do.
When bone broth congeals, it's from the collagen in the bones. It's used to make the stock. It's the healthiest form of soup stock, and it will liquefy when it's reheated. If you make soup stock and it turns to gelatin, you know you've done it right. Now, this collagen in the bones is what's causing your soup to gel. It's completely natural and it only happens in rich, well made stock. It can be a little freaky though if you're not expecting it. The gelatin from the bones makes it gel in the fridge. That is where this comes from. And as you can tell, I'm skimming off the top layer of fat. This is what you don't want in your soup. And because we've put it in the fridge overnight, it's had a chance to solidify. So it is easy to take off the top. Do not miss this step. Once this is all cleaned off, you have 3 different options. One is to store it in a container with a lid in the refrigerator for 2 to 3 days, or in the freezer for up to 3 months. You can also use it immediately. Just bring it to a boil for 2 minutes and use it as a base for any type of soup or sauce that you would like.
Now that we've made this delicious bone broth, it's time to go and make our chicken noodle soup. Yes, this is a recipe you're going to want to click on next. Whenever we have roasted chicken, the very next question my kids ask is, are we having chicken noodle soup the next day? Because they love this so much. So just take that link, click on it, and I'll show you how to make chicken noodle soup with dumplings. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you get notified when my new videos come out each week. I love doing this and having you as a viewer. Thanks for coming along with me on this journey and being part of my community. And I'll see you next week.